Welcome to Inspiring Women in Tech, hosted by Inspiring the Future Australia. My name's Jenny Paynes. I have our director, Adrian Rhodes, and my colleague, Vanessa Perkins, here today. We're excited to partner with AWS in communities and be supported by regional industry education partnerships, Training Services New South Wales. A warm welcome to all of you, students, teachers, and our guests all across Australia. It's great to have you with us today. We acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were the original custodians of this land on which we meet today across Australia. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, for they hold the traditions, wisdom and memories on which we place our feet today. We extend our respect to Indigenous students, teachers and guests who join us. So to let you know about the format of today, we've got 5 inspiring guest speakers. We're delighted to have them with us. They will be sharing insights into the world of cloud technology and data, certainly an industry that many of us don't know a lot about. They'll be sharing their roles, their career journey, and also a recent project that they've done. I'm sure you'll all find their stories very interesting. We have the Q&A function that is active, so please put forward any questions. We will endeavour to answer as many as possible after we hear from each of the guest speakers. So I'd like to introduce Krisha, Rajita, Leanne, Marina and Kelly. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So let's start with Krisha. Welcome, Krisha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Krisha, and I'm so happy to be one of the people here today to talk to you about different careers in the tech world. Now, there may be a common expectation that to work in tech, you have to have a tech degree. While there are many roles that do require tech qualifications, there are many other skill sets needed in the tech world too. I, for example, am a regional sourcing manager, and I look after the supply chain for the materials that we need in order to build AWS data centers. So in other words, I get the fun job of buying stuff. The division I belong to is called Global Network Delivery, and it's responsible for building the network infrastructure necessary for our customers to use Amazon's cloud computing services. My role in a nutshell is to manage the relationship with our global suppliers. I'm responsible for making sure that we receive our products on time, that the products are of high quality, and that they come at a reasonable cost. Whilst my team is mostly based in the US, I mostly work with teams across the Asia-Pacific region, of course here in Australia, as well as Singapore, Japan, China, Korea, India, and Indonesia. There's always a new challenge, whether it be sourcing material for projects with tight deadlines or learning about the importing requirements for each new country we go into. I've also had the privilege of traveling to most of these countries for my work, so it's been certainly quite an adventure so far. So how did I get here? Host, if we can move on to the next slide, please. As we touched on earlier, I may work in tech, but I don't have a tech degree. What I do have is a degree in business with a double major in finance and human resources management, which I completed at the University of Technology, Sydney in 2008. Like any good finance graduate, I sought to kickstart my career in the financial services industry. And it didn't take long before I realized I hated it and soon signed up to a graduate program with Energy Australia. On that graduate program, I was given opportunities to work in different divisions where I eventually built my skills in commercial and financial modeling. No, not like fashion runway modeling, but more around analyzing large data sets and learning how to use that data to make business decisions. This came in handy when I hopped over to Endeavour Energy as an analyst for the procurement and logistics branch. There, I learned about sourcing and procurement, what constitutes best value for money, and how to manage suppliers to ensure that they're performing to our expectations. After 8.5 years in the energy industry, I was headhunted into the tech world for my first role at Amazon Web Services. Under the Infra Supply Chain and Procurement org, I became responsible for sourcing the material for the AWS APAC Edge program. And after 2 years, I was approached by the Global Network Delivery team to run their cabling sourcing program for the APAC region. And this is the role that I carry out to today. I certainly didn't imagine when I was a finance student that I would end up working in sourcing and procurement. I never dreamed of the adventures that I would have traveling the world for work, standing in front of the White House in Washington, DC, seeing Mount Fuji from our office building in Tokyo, walking the Great Wall of China, or even the streets of Mumbai. I would attribute my career path not to a rigid plan, but to figuring out what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy doing, and then being open to new opportunities that presented themselves. It's okay not to know exactly what you want to do when you grow up. If you know what you're good at and you know what you enjoy doing, give that a go. You never know where that path may lead you, what you'll achieve, and what kind of adventures you'll have along the way. So host, if we can move to the next slide, please, I can tell you guys a little bit more about one of my most recent projects. So in data centers, we do a lot of cabling. You can see here in the images. With such a large requirement for cables, we needed to hold stock or inventory in our warehouses. There was a point in time where we didn't have a central location for all cable inventory information. So teams around the globe were tracking their cable inventory on individual Excel spreadsheets. So trying to get some data on global stock was near impossible. I worked with a software developer to create an inventory tracking tool that allowed us to identify and track our inventory. After building the software, I ran remote training programs for over 300 technicians across the APAC, the Americas, and the Europe regions. And as a result of launching this program, we were able to locate about 400,000 cables across the globe to the tune of about 10 million US dollars. Over time, we were able to use the data in that tool to then help us make better purchasing decisions. For example, setting efficient levels of inventory or transferring excess inventory instead of purchasing new material. And over the course of a year, we were able to achieve about 17% reduction in global inventory, or about nearly $2 million worth in savings. We're also now currently working on additional features around automations to make the replenishment process for the materials more efficient. So for me, working in tech doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a tech degree or be the world's best coder. There are so many different skill sets needed in order to make the business run, and everybody in the team brings their own strengths to the table. I'll leave you with a small tip that helped guide me throughout my career, and that's to reflect on what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. Learn as much as you can, build your skills in that area, and be receptive to opportunities. There is a world of adventure that awaits you, so don't be afraid to take the next step and see where that path may lead. That's my 2 cents, so thanks again for having me, and I will hand back over to Jenny.
Thank you, Krisha. Really interesting. I loved your tip in relation to following what you're good at, and the travel sounded amazing. I'd like to now introduce Rajita.
Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. And thanks, everyone, for joining today. So I'd like to start with my introduction, and I'd like to show you my slide. Yeah. So there you go. So I am working as a data center technician at AWS based here in Sydney, and I've been with AWS for 2 years now. So as a data center technician, my role is to provide operational support within our data centers, which means like we provide inputs, troubleshooting hardware and network related issues. So that is helping our customers for high availability of the services. And also the most important thing we do is to make sure that all the servers are up and running so that all the customers can get the access to it. So that's my part of the job. So apart from that, we also work closely with other teams such as logistics, the data center engineering operations team, safety team. So it's like we need to communicate really well with all our other teams to make our work done. So that's pretty much about my role. And thing that I love about my work is that I get chance to learn new things every day. So every day is not the same. So I get opportunity to be part of different projects and like we get chance to troubleshoot different hardware issues. So I find that really interesting. So that's what I love about my job, and this is that's what we data center technician do at AWS. So I'd like to move to my next slide. Let me explain a little bit about my career journey so far. So I am originally from Nepal, and I came to Australia like 4 years back to pursue Masters of Information Technology. And I have completed my bachelor's degree back from Nepal, and it was really challenging for me to come to Australia, being in a new culture, new environment, and like being away from my family. But with the challenges come the opportunities. So when I came to Australia, I started along with my studies. I started working in different part-time roles. I worked at Sushi Train as a waitress, and also worked at Office Works as a customer service team member. Even though those roles were not like technical, but those roles had really helped me to be where I am today. Those roles helped me to know more about different skills such as communication skills, time management skills, which I was able to utilize it still now, and in my like current role and in my personal life as well. So no matter whatever experience you have in your career journey, I think everything matters, and you can transfer those skills in any other roles you want to be. So I think whatever experience it is always good. After completing my degree, I started looking for different roles in IT. It was I didn't expect that I would end up as a data center technician, because when I applied for the role, I thought it was really technical and I could not meet all the requirements in the job role. So I was like thinking not to apply at some point, but then I realized that I should apply because I might regret it later not applying. So I just applied even though I could see that like there are so many technical stuff that some of them I couldn't meet. But what I did was I applied and I started learning those skills, filling those gaps, started online learning and watching videos and stuff. So that's how I ended up as a data center operations trainee at Amazon Web Services, which is my first job in technical industry. So after 6 months being in data center operation trainee role, I progressed to become full-time data center technician. So that has been my journey so far. So what I think is no matter what experience you have, you can always transfer your skills in other roles. So that's what I did for these roles, and it's been helping me a lot. So yeah, I've been really grateful that I've been with AWS, where I get a chance to learn different things every day and be part of this wonderful team and very supportive team. So that's my career journey so far. So I'd like to talk more about my recent projects. So as I explained before, data center technician is mostly responsible for technical stuff. You can see in the picture, a typical data center would look like that, where there are a lot of racks and many servers within a rack. So our responsibilities is to go and repair and replace troubleshoot issues, what is causing it, and mainly hardware issues. But apart from that, we are also involved in different projects, so which could be technical and non-technical projects. So recently, I've been part of a non-technical project, which is mentoring trainees. So it is all about in our team, we hire like trainees, even though trainees are someone who don't have like enough experience in tech industries, but they are hired as a trainee and they are trained like me, like they are trained well and who later on progress to become a data center technician. So I could be part of this program, and where I provide mentorship to a few of the trainees here in our data centers. What I do is I allocate one-on-one meetings with them regularly, and we work together achieve my mentees' career goals, and I help them to be successful data center technician. It was challenging at the beginning because I have never done mentoring before, and I feel like it must be hard, but I took the challenge, and now it's helping me. Like mentoring is way, it is helping me as well to learn different things. If we discuss on a regular basis, so I get chance to learn from my mentee as well. So it's been a really great experience so far, and I'm glad like when I started, I had a mentor as well. Now I could like do the same for other mentees and help them to be a successful DC data center technician. So I'm really glad to be part of this project, and this is helping everyone in our like team to share our knowledges and skills. So this has been really great experience. So that's all about me, my journey and my projects. So I'd like to leave you with a tip. Always say yes to opportunities. That's what I always apply. Like even though you feel like you don't know, you haven't done that thing before, and you feel like afraid of trying it, but always say yes, and then think like of how you would do it. Like reach out to people, start learning things. I think you could always do it. So that's what I want to say. Thanks. So I'll hand over to Jenny.
Thanks, Rajita. Such a positive attitude. I love it. Yes to opportunities. And I admire you, Rajita, for taking the big leap to come from Nepal to Australia to pursue your career. So thank you so much. I'd like to now introduce Leanne.
Good morning. My name's Leanne Cartwright Bradford, and I am the head of Audible operations for APAC. So if you don't know Audible, we are an app, a service for customers to listen to audiobooks and audio content and podcasts. And we create content, we market it, we and deliver an app to customers. So that's really important to us to make sure that we are thinking about customers and what they want. And so I oversee the teams in Australia, Singapore and India, as well as Japan, who create this phenomenal audio content for our customers. And I want to say to you that I had no idea that I would ever be doing this at any point in my career until I was. And I think the big message I would love to leave you with is that, as I talk through my career on the next slide, is that you won't have any sense of where your career can go at this early stage. Technology, culture, the world around you will change so much over a longer period of time. And I think the key thing is to be flexible and to be open to it and to go with that change. So when I think about my career, if we go on to the next slide, when I was at high school, I had no sense of what I wanted to do. The adults in my life, my mum worked in a factory, my dad was a printer. They worked in shops and factories and did those kind of roles. So I worked in a shop too when I was in school. And I looked up to my teachers a lot. They were really powerful influences on me. They're really, it's a really important job. So I decided that I wanted to be a teacher, and I went to the University of Sydney to be a teacher. And I realised that I wasn't going to be very good at it. So I decided to change tack and went to UTS to do a degree in communications and media. And that felt more like me. So I studied, marketing and advertising and creating films and creating radio and things like that. And my first job was when I was at uni, and it was my first job outside of working in shops and different roles was an intern role. And I worked for free 1 day a week at Austereo with Today FM and Triple M. And I learnt so much in that role and eventually got a permanent role with them. And I learnt about how to think about creating content or creating things that people want to listen to, and making sure that you were engaging and interesting, and making sure that you were thinking about the person you're talking to and what they want to hear. That's so important. So I learnt a lot there. I went traveling, backpacking for 2 years. Never, when I was at high school, would I ever thought that I would go backpacking for 2 years, but I did, around Europe and the US with not very much money, if I'm honest, and then came back to Australia and found it really hard to get a job. At that time, there weren't many jobs around. So I took a role that I thought sounded interesting in an events consultancy. So this was a company that made events. So a business would come to us and say, hey, we want to do this conference for our team. We want to make them excited. We want to teach them this, and we would design the event. I hated it. It was really hard, long hours. It was really, really attention to detail stuff. And it just wasn't me. So I decided to try to go back to what I studied and think about what did I really love there? And I eventually got a job temping at 20th Century Fox. And you would probably have heard of 20th Century Fox. They create films and TV shows. And I worked as a receptionist, as a temp. And because it was a place where I was open and interested and engaged and passionate, I was able to move up quite quickly. Soon I was the EA to the managing director. Soon I was the marketing assistant, then the PR coordinator, then a brand manager, then a senior brand manager. And then an opportunity came for me to move to the UK, and I worked there on some amazing launches and amazing shows and films. So far, no tech. But what changed is that, as you all know, and I'm obviously talking about when I was a lot younger, the olden days, films were on CD and Blu-ray only. There really wasn't, the iPhones came out in 2007, and this was, kind of early 2000s I'm talking. And so digital came along, and we had to learn really quickly how to sell films through iTunes, through different partners, digitally and online. And it was a real eye-opener for me about how things can change around you and how you need to move with it. And that's how I got into tech, by being really interested in content and entertainment, and then seeing that change around me and moving with it. And it's really important to go with change and follow your passion however it goes. I worked at Samsung for a while, and that brought me here to Audible and Amazon today. And I have gone back to my radio roots in audio, and I am actually working out how to bring the best audio content to our customers as much as possible. So it's really important to understand that there are lots of ways to tech, and there are lots of ways in your career that you will go that you can't even foresee yet, and that's okay. Being open is so important. So I'll move on to the next slide. This is a recent project that we did. And really what's really important here is we're thinking about what do people want to listen to? Who's the best amazing talent locally in Australia that we can work with? We work with the Kates from the catering show on this particular title. How can we tell people about this content, you know? And how can we deliver it to customers? So what's the best experience in the app for them to listen to? What's the best way to make the content and give it to customers? What tech enables is for us to know what customers are listening to. In the past, in radio, you would broadcast it out and you would hope people were listening. They would do surveys and they'd ask people if they were listening. Now we know because they're listening on our service. So we can see directly with customers what they want to do, what they like, what they don't like. They can review it and tell us. This is what tech enables us to do, is to get closer to the customer. But as I said, I never foresaw this, and I never thought that I would ever be doing this, because this didn't exist. And you'll see those changes in your career too. I think before I finish, I will leave you with my tip. And my tip is for when you're in your first roles, really think about, really be open to learning. You will be in meetings, you'll be in forums where you don't know what the senior people are talking about. Listen and pay attention and try to absorb it, because people are watching and will want to help you with your career if you are open and engaged and excited to learn. No one will expect you to know everything. No one will expect you to know very much when you start out. All they ask is that you're curious and open. And if you show that, senior people will see that you're engaged and interested, and they will invest time to help mentor you and grow. And that time is very, very powerful. So I think my main message is, you can't know where you'll end up, and just be open to it and be open to learning and stay curious. And that will set you on a path that is interesting and like nothing you could have imagined. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. You can feel your enthusiasm for your industry. That's fantastic. I'd like to welcome Marina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. So my name is Marina Calligeros, and I'm a health and safety manager. So what does a health and safety manager do? For me, my core function, my core role is to make sure that our employees and anyone who visits our sites, including vendors as well, are safe. So we try and prevent any injuries and illnesses from occurring on our work sites. For us, we try to look at how to make our everyday tasks safer. And if we do believe that we're in a safe position, what can we do to further improve that? And what can we do to increase our compliance and make sure that our employees not only come to work in a safe state, but they go home in the same way as they did when they arrived. On top of this, we also want to make sure that we're complying with local government requirements. So our government here in Australia make sure that we have strict health and safety policies that all companies must abide to. And it's part of my role to make sure that we're not only keeping our employees safe, but we're in compliance as well. And lastly, and I think this is a fun part of my role, is that we get to develop and implement safety campaigns and initiatives. So this for us is an opportunity to kind of, market safety and talk about all of the good things that we're doing in our sites and the ways that we are working to keep our employees safe. Next slide, please. So let me talk a little bit about my journey so far. One thing that myself and I think a lot of safety professionals in my industry will say is that none of us set out to become a safety professional when we first finished school. So for me, after high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I took some good advice from my parents and signed myself up for a Bachelor of Business. My My father was an accountant. I think that's where he wanted me to be, but it is definitely not where I ended up. One fun fact, though, that I will say is that Krisha, who spoke earlier today, and I did the same degree at university, and we ended up in two very different places. But it's a good way to show that your studies can help you find what you enjoy and where you want to be with your career. So after I finished, I ended up taking a role in buying, which is very similar to where Krisha is now, before ending up in a role in HR. So I worked in HR for several years, and that for me was where I really wanted to focus while I was studying at university, and I majored in human resources. And there was an opportunity that came up in my business when I was a HR assistant to move into a health and safety role. For me, I didn't know much about what safety was at the time and what it really meant to be a safety professional, but I was willing to give it a go. And once I did, I fell in love with the industry and the space, and that's where I've been ever since. So I've had several roles as my career progressed. I've gone from an assistant to a coordinator to an advisor, and now I'm in a management position. So I've found that throughout my career, I've taken different opportunities, both internally with the companies that I was working for, and then also if an opportunity arrived externally, if it was aligned with my career goals and my interests, then I would go and apply for that as well. It's carried me well so far, and I must say that I am really happy where I am at the moment, both in my industry and the company that I'm working for. Next slide, please. Now, one question you might ask is, what projects does a safety professional do when they're at work? So for me, I'll talk about one of my most recent projects that I've had the opportunity to do. So at our sites, we have a security screening checkpoint, and it's much like what you would see at an airport. Not that any of us have been in an airport in the last year, I'd say, but if you have had the opportunity to be in one, you might know what this looks like. So before we enter a space on our sites, we have security officers who will make sure that we're not carrying any media, so mobile phones or laptops and devices, into this particular area of our site. And what myself and my colleagues thought we would do is that we would try and find an opportunity during this screening process to also make sure that our employees have their PPE. Now, your PPE is your personal protective equipment, and this can be anything from your hard hat that you wear on your head, your gloves to make sure that you don't cut yourself while you're working, or perhaps even safety glasses. So if sharp objects or perhaps chemicals fly at your face, your eyes will be protected. So what we want to do when our employees are entering this particular space in our site is make sure that they are wearing all of the right equipment on their person so that they don't get injured and that their risk of injury is reduced. So this project that we're working on at the moment is to make sure that our security officers, as they're looking for media, conducting their screening checks before someone enters into this space, they're also going to ask employees if they have their PPE and give them a reminder to go and retrieve it if they're not wearing it. So it's been a good project so far. We're trying to collect a lot of data to make sure that the process is working and to actually see how many people are entering into this space without their PPE. And the results that we get from this project are going to help us really focus where our training needs to be and what guidance and awareness we can give our teams to make sure that they are prepared and they are ready and protected when they're at work. Thank you.
Thanks, Marina. What an important role. I think it's so important that, you know, how motivating that your role is keeping employees safe and healthy. So such an important role, such an industry that not many of us would have known about. So that was fantastic. Thank you so much. So I'd like to now introduce Kelly.
Hi, thanks so much for the introduction, Jenny. Hi everyone, my name is Kelly Pan, and it's awesome to meet you all virtually today. Hope one day we will be able to do this in person as well. So a bit about my current job. I'm a data center design engineer. What does that mean? It means that I work in a team of people who essentially builds and make sure that a data center works the way it's meant to. In terms of what I do within that team is, as a mechanical engineer, I make sure that the cooling system for the data centers is sufficient to allow computers, servers, equipment to remain running all the time, no matter what the weather is like outside. So the fun part about the job is the amount of problem solving I get to do. I'm not allowed to say where our data centers are, but you can imagine how challenging it would be if I'm designing a data center for cold winters of China or compared to the hot and humid weather of Singapore. So that's all pretty interesting. And I'm hoping once everything's open again, I'll be able to travel and see these sites myself as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So a question is, how did I get here? I went to an all-girls high school, and in 2013, I went to the University of New South Wales to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering. During my time at uni, I dedicated myself a lot to a lot of student societies, especially things that I really resonated with. And one of those was the Women in Engineering Student Society. They are still running today, and they do really amazing programs with high school students to get them interested and give them a better understanding of what the different fields of engineering are. The good thing about the society was it was also a great way to network and meet other females in the industry as well, both students and people working as well. So I got to meet a lot of amazing people that I still keep in contact today through that student society. And as for what my career looked like, through the whole time that I was at uni, I dabbled in a lot of different jobs, I guess. So I've worked in crane manufacturing, as in the cranes that build high-rise buildings in the city. I worked in household electronics. I worked on the design of a steam iron, which is very different to what I do now. And then I went into something called building control systems. And that's the job I did after I graduated as well. And in this role, I basically learned how a building works and how we control a building to make sure that we're keeping everyone comfortable and cool within the building, but also being energy efficient about it as well, not wasting electricity for electricity's sake. So I really enjoyed doing that, but what I realized is I didn't really understand how to design it. I understand how to control it, but not really the mathematics or the physics behind it. So I went to a design consultancy where I worked as a mechanical design consultant for a few years, and I really learned in different climates, how do you design different types of systems? And I got to work on hospitals, data centers. I worked on some schools, maybe some of the schools you guys are at now, with the air conditioning systems. And of course, data centers, which is how I ended up transitioning into AWS. So I first worked as a data center operations engineer. So I was the engineering alternative to Rajita's role, where my role was to make sure every day the data center, when we went into the data center, each day it would remain running, it would remain cool, and it would remain powered by electricity to make sure everyone as consumers can access their Netflix, their YouTube, their Zoom, and that the internet would be running the whole time. And not long after that, I transitioned into this role now where I design data centers. So that's me in a nutshell. I did a lot of different career paths. But onto the next slide. I was asked to provide a highlight from a recent project, and I can see that the screen looks nothing like a data center. And that's because I can't really talk about data center design. It's all very secretive, and it's sort of like working in a spy movie. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what I did before, which is hospitals. So as a mechanical engineer, a question I get a lot is, oh, do I work on cars? Do I work on planes? It's like, yeah, those are cool, but no, I work in buildings. And I love it because I love how relevant it is to our everyday life. And an interesting situation, I think, and how relevant it is with the pandemic that's currently going on. As a mechanical engineer, I don't only just design air conditioning systems, I also do things that will protect people. So what we have on the screen is something called an isolation room in the hospital. The room is designed so when you walk in, if you want to go into the room, you walk from the corridor into the ante-room, which is like the little room on the left. You walk into the ante-room and then you enter the isolation room, which is on the right. So this type of room is designed for two types of patients. One of them is those that are immunocompromised. So it means that they can get sick very easily. They could be undergoing cancer treatment, they could be burn victims, whatever it is, but they need to be protected from catching diseases from other people in the hospital. And then the second type of patient is those that are contagious. So those that can easily give their sickness to other people. So COVID patients, people with flu or influenza. And what we want to do is protect other people from catching their sickness. So as a mechanical engineer, we design two types of rooms for these two types of patients. So the room on the very, very left is called a negative isolation room. So in this room, we put our contagious patients. So when they're sitting inside the isolation room, the air doesn't leave the room because we suck all the air out of that room. So the air is forced to travel from the corridor into the anteroom, into the patient's room, and then gets sucked out of the building where it won't touch anybody else. And then in the room next to it is where we put our immunocompromised people, so the ones that can get sick easily. And to protect them, we positively pressure the room. So we push fresh air into the building, right into their room, and that room pushes out into the anteroom and then out into the corridor. So none of the air from within the hospital circulates and touches them. Now, an interesting problem, and the engineering is all about problem solving, is how do we protect a patient if we don't know what sickness they have? We can get a patient and we don't know whether they're contagious, whether they can easily get sick. We don't know what's wrong with them. So how do we decide what type of room to put them in? So my mentor worked on designing and getting approved a new type of room, which still isn't in our hospitals yet, but maybe in the next few years. And they're just a room that protects both the patient and the people in the hospital by using the anteroom as the positive or negative pressure. So basically you either force all of the air out from the anteroom, and that way the two corridor and room airs don't mix, or you suck the air out from the anteroom. So the corridor and room air enters the anteroom and then gets sucked out without touching anyone else in the hospital. So that's a recent project I worked on. I know I have another slide, but I know I'm out of time as well, so I'm probably going to skip it. But I will end with one career tip, and that is to never let anyone tell you what you can and can't do with your career. I think my career was really defined by the fact that I went to an all-girls school, and we were never taught that engineering is a boys' degree or nursing is a female's career or anything like that. We were told to explore things that we were interested in. And I hope that hearing that today, you guys will also start considering careers that you may have considered was masculine or feminine that you weren't considering before. So yeah, that's my slides. Thank you. I'll pass it back to Jenny.
Thank you so much, Kelly. What an interesting project. That's just absolutely fascinating. So thank you so much for sharing that. We've got many questions that have come through to our Q&A. I have, and we will start with going through those questions. Just before I hand over to my colleague Vanessa, that will read out the questions. We have got a first question that's come through. If I may be able to put this to Kelly, can you explain the data centers and the cloud and what that kind of that correlation and what that means, the cloud? We hear of cloud technology. Would you be able to explain that for us, Kelly?
Oh, I'll give it a shot. I think there are probably more well-equipped panelists here.
Okay. Well, if you feel like you could direct it to someone else.
Rajita, would you prefer to answer this? I feel like this might be your forte.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I could answer like full on, but yeah, I can give it a go. So is it like should I answer like cloud and data center, how it correlates?
Yes, yeah. If you can explain what the cloud is and related to data center.
So a data center is a place where all the IT resources are processed and stored. For example, like we call it cloud, but the cloud is actually a data center. That's, I think, if that explains well. Cloud, like we just say cloud, but there's something in the cloud. It's not like flying around, right? So there's something happening in the cloud. So that's the place called data center, where, like, for example, when you watch Netflix, where are all those movies or series are streaming from? So they are being processed somewhere, they are being stored somewhere. So that's the place. That's the place where the data center is the place where they are stored and processed, and it's ready for you to watch. So I think that's correlated to cloud. So people call it cloud. So that's actually cloud. So you can just get data from access your data from anywhere in the world. So that's why I think it is called cloud, because it is so easier to access. So you can stay anywhere and you can access the data from anywhere in the world. So, but actually it is stored in one of the data centers in the world. So the cloud is actually a data center which is stored in a different location. So whichever is relevant to your location, you will get the access from that place. So for example, like as I said, Netflix or your Gmail account, or if you stored anything in a OneDrive, so everything is stored somewhere. So everything is being stored in the cloud. It's a data center. So yeah, I hope I explained it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I'm going to hand over to Vanessa to read out some further questions from students.
Thank you, Jenny. So this question is for Leanne. What challenges have you faced being in a senior role in the tech space, and how did you overcome them?
There are lots of challenges in a senior role in any space, and I think probably tech specifically, it's the pace of change. It's how quickly customers' expectations change. It's how quickly technology changes. It's how quickly what is expected from all areas changes. And so I think the skill that's really important and that's challenging but also rewarding is coping and managing and embracing that change. So I think that's the most challenging part, is knowing that you will never get things perfect and rest. It's constantly evolving and moving and changing, and you have to embrace that, else you'll get left behind. And you have to embrace it and not resist it, because it's the way of the world.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Marina. So what are your tips for future health and safety managers?
That's a brilliant question. For me, my big tip would be to look for entry-level roles, somewhere where a company that's willing to train you up. So you don't necessarily have to have a degree in health and safety. It's something that I myself don't have. And what I was able to do to progress my career is to get experience. So if you can find an entry-level role where you can work with more senior safety professionals to give you training and guidance, that's your way in. And that's for you to not only test if you like the industry and want to work there, but also for you to decide what your career could look like, whether you'd like to specialize in a certain part of the safety field, and also whether what type of industries you'd like to be a safety professional for. So I have friends in the industry who look after construction sites. I look after data center sites. I have friends in retail and warehousing as well. So there's lots of opportunities, but I'd say get an entry-level role where you can learn, and that's where your career will start within the industry, and it can take you anywhere from there.
Great advice. Thank you, Marina. The next question I've got is for Kelly. What advantages did you find doing internships during university, and did you find any challenges when managing your time?
It's a really good question. First off, I think internships were a really great way to experience and experiment with what you liked and what you didn't like about the industry. I always thought I'd be in like a product design role, and that's why I landed at an internship with Sunbeam, because I love designing things. I love, making little gadgets that I've always wanted to do, like a spy movie type thing where you have a little wristband that you press it and it's like a help button or something. But what I did learn is that it's very different. It's a very different industry to what you imagine. So I feel like trying and dabbling in as many things as possible is a really good way for you to know where to take your career in the future. And what was the second part of the question? Bad memory.
How did you go managing your time?
Oh, managing time. Yeah, clearly not very good, since my memory is terrible as well. No, but it was really good, because at uni, the way you manage your workload is how you choose to do it. I did a lot of late nights, I did a lot of weekend work, but most importantly, I had a lot of friends that were there to support me through it as well. But it's very manageable. You just need to set those expectations for yourself with your teammates and with the people that you go to uni with. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. So the next one I've got is for Krisha, and it's kind of a bit of a double one. So what could people be doing now to prepare for a career in technology or in the industry of technology? And is there anything in particular that companies in these areas are looking for on resumes?
I guess to prepare yourself for technology, I mean, a lot of us, I think, weren't really prepared to step into a career within technology when we first started, right? I myself, I know I did a subject in software design when I was in year 11, but I gave that up thinking, oh, I probably won't need to use this in the future, but it actually came in handy. So, if tech is something that you're really interested in, try and take up the subjects relevant while you're still in school. Obviously, if you're interested in taking that further, then you can step into some tertiary education, like getting a degree in that area as well, to start preparing. Knowing the different types of companies that you can apply for and doing some research on that would also be really beneficial. And as Marina also mentioned for her industry, looking for an entry-level role where the people around you are willing to train you is a great stepping stone into, I guess, any field that you're looking to get into. And I think the second part of the question was, sorry, can you remind me of the second part as well? I'm like, Kelly, I've forgotten already.
Okay. What would companies be looking for on a resume that might make someone stand out?
Yeah, okay. So with any hiring process, and this is something I learned in HR when I was studying in university as well, is that there will be a set of key criteria on any job advertisement that a successful candidate will need to tick off, right? So whatever that criteria may be, it may be experience, depending on the role, it may be a qualification. Make sure those keywords and those attributes of your resume directly address what's on that job ad. And then if you're fortunate enough to be invited into an interview, one of the key hiring decisions will be based on your being a good fit for the company as well. So, on top of all of the, I guess, prerequisite requirements of being able to do the job, companies will also be looking for how well you fit into the company and how much you actually know about that industry. So do your research before you start applying for roles. Try to understand what that company does, where they're planning on heading, and align yourself with the goals and values that the company holds as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great advice. Next question, sorry, last question we'll put to Rajita. What attracted you to choose this pathway? And was there any particular challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, sure. So this pathway, I mean, a technology pathway. So I was like not sure what I wanted when during my high school. Like I was like good at math and science, so I thought like I'll choose something related to that, and I even choose like biology and stuff. And when I had to draw and got like earthworm and stuff, so I didn't like that at all. And then after that, during my undergraduate degree, I was still not sure like what I actually wanted to do. So it was like my parents suggested me to do engineering, so that's why I just studied that. So that's how I get into the technology field. So when I started, I was like really new, and there were so less female, and I feel intimidated because all the guys knew a lot more technical, and they used to play games and stuff. So it was really intimidating. But yeah, that's how I get started. And when I started, I liked the way the technology is making differences in the world. Like, for example, now I'm like so far away from my family back in Nepal. So but I do a regular chat like on a video chat. So it's so convenient. So it's all because of technology. So I think that's what get my interest in, like how we can how people get connected with technology, and the fact that I get chance to learn new things every day, because technology is growing so fast, and I always like to learn and learn new things. So that's also one thing that get me into the technology field.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll pass it back over to Jenny now.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, students, for those questions. Fantastic questions.
And there were so many questions that we didn't get to, so I apologise. We'll try to.
Yeah, we will. We will. What we'll do is we'll put the question and answers on our website under our news blog, and they'll be up, I'd say, next week. And so some of the questions that we didn't get to, we will endeavour to talk to our guest speakers and answer those questions so we can cover everything off, because we love your interest. So keep an eye on our website. We'll show that on a slide coming up our website, and it'll be under our news blog. Just next, I'm just going to ask, and I know all our guest speakers did do this in their little presentation, but is there just a quick parting words or a phrase that you'd like to pass on to the students that are senior students embarking on their career journeys, maybe in the next year or 2 years, maybe 3 years, but they're soon to be into the world of work or further study? Is there just a few parting words? And I'd encourage students to, if some words or phrases really resonate with you, I'd jot them down. Even after this, if you just remember some words or phrases, jot them down, because you may refer to them in years to come. And it's encouraging to have these ladies so enthusiastic in supporting you. So let's go through. We'll start with Krisha, just some short words, your parting words.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think if there's anything that you really enjoy doing, be relentless in getting better at it. Learn as much as you can about that area, and then be open to opportunities as soon as they present themselves to you.
Excellent. Thank you. Rajita?
Sure. So I'd like to say learn and be curious always. And as Krisha said, say yes to opportunities, even though you feel like you don't have experience. You can always give it a try, and you can always learn anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne?
I think my feedback or my parting words would be stay open and curious, as the guys have said before me, and know that you can't know the end game. So just think about the next right step. What's the thing you'd like to try next? What makes the most sense? You can't know where you're going to end up in 10 years. And if you did, how boring would that be?
So true. Thank you. Marina?
Yeah, look, my advice is you have to start somewhere. So if you don't know what you'd like to do straight out of high school, I recommend either taking a job or looking at studies. For me, my first job out of high school was stocking shelves at my local Toys R Us store, and I ended up being a safety manager for Toys R Us several years later. So that first job, even if it's not where you think it's where you want to be, that could be the stepping stone to get you to where you'd like to be.
Excellent. Yeah, great advice. Thanks, Marina. And Kelly?
Yep. And so I guess my parting advice is you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. Don't underestimate the advantage of a network. If there are opportunities to get involved with university student societies or any other programs that tech companies do or any other company does, sign yourself up. You're going to meet people in those forums that will be able to provide you more advice, more guidance, and more importantly, you're probably going to run into them in your career at some point. So definitely throw yourself out there and get involved with things outside of school.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kelly. I'd like to now thank you all. Thank you all our guest speakers. I think it's been absolutely insightful. Your enthusiasm, you can feel it through the screen. Thank you. And for the students and teachers, thank you for joining us today. There's so many opportunities out there, students, and the future is bright. I'd like to especially thank Amazon Web Services and REAP Training Services New South Wales for partnering with us today. We'd love your feedback. And in the email that was sent to all participants yesterday from our director, Adrian Rhodes, there is a link for that feedback. It only takes a couple of minutes, and we want to do more of these webinars, so we would love your feedback so we can improve. Look out for future events on our website. We have the AWS Family Tech Series is available now, and Girls Tech Day will be available in December. And we encourage all teachers to register with us, and so we can make sure we let you know about all our events that are coming up. Our mission for all our events is to broaden career horizons for the future generation. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.